Chapter 947, Only You Can Do I. He pursed and said after her mood was stabilized, but don't forget, the premise of this bet is that it will only be my turn if Lu Jishi can't cure it. If she is cured, then I'm considered lost. After all, there was still a first come first serve. Lu Jishi came to the city lord's mansion earlier than she did, and she had been treating Zhuge Xiaotian long ago. He came later, so she should let Lu Jishi finish her treatment first. And this was one of the reasons why the odds of the bet was extremely biased toward Lu Jishi. Nan Gongyu didn't say anything like he believed in her as before. Instead, he squinted and smiled lightly. The premise of the bet is indeed like this, but I bet she can't cure it. Huh? He looked up at Nan Gongyu in astonishment, and she seemed to perceive something different from his expression. What do you mean by this? Did you do something? Little girl, I trust you so much, but you are suspicious of me. Nan Gongyu smiled and scratched the tip of her nose, and he said in annoyance, I didn't do anything, I just learned about the symptoms of the city lord's son in advance. He was startled. The illness of the city lord's son. In fact, these 2 days, I have thought about understanding the illness first, but since Lu Jishi said that she will treat the young city lord 2 days later, I have never left this Lanxiang courtyard. Immediately, in the early morning, Ren Shuling and Li Zhenyu also ran over, seeming to ridicule and warn her not to leave the yard for help for these 2 days, otherwise it would be considered cheating. He had always been confident in her medical skills. With her current level, the results would still be the same without seeing the situation of the city lord's son in advance. So since Lu Jishi didn't go out and there were warnings from Ren Shuling and Li Zhenyu, she stayed in this yard too. She didn't try to find a way to know about the illness of the city lord's son. Now that He heard Nan Gongyu's words, she couldn't help showing a look of surprise. Is the illness of this city lord's son really so strange? Nan Gongyu is so sure that Lu Jishi can't treat it? What kind of illness could it be? He couldn't help but ask her doubts. What kind of illness makes you conclude that Lu Jishi can't cure it? Didn't you say that you don't know Lu Jishi? How can you determine that? Nan Gongyu shook his head and said, I don't know how high Lu Jishi's medical skills are. I can only be sure that there has never been such a patient in the history of Miluo continent. Or in other words, no one in this entire continent can treat the disease of the young city lord. As he said, he looked down at He with deep trust in his eyes and an inexplicable meaning. Sheer, if anyone on this continent can cure this strange disease, I think it's you. He's heart jumped, and she looked straight at Nan Gongyu's eyes. What does Nan Gongyu mean? Did he discover that I'm not from this world? She gave a low cough and diverted the subject. What illness is this? Nan Gongyu squinted, suddenly stretched out her hand to hug her tightly into his arms, and slowly said, Sheer, have you ever heard of a monster that comes out at night and likes to suck human blood like a bat? She raised her head abruptly. This time, her face really showed a shocked expression. Are you talking about a vampire? Chapter 948. Come to watch the show on the second day. The entire Lanxiang courtyard was the focus of everyone in Yangon City. However, Lanxiang courtyard was in the city lord's mansion after all, so even if others wanted to come in and watch the treatment of Fairy Jishi and Shiyu, they couldn't watch it. However, when He woke up in the morning, she still found that the entire yard was quite lively. Not to mention that many of the manservants and maids of the city lord's mansion were secretly watching outside the courtyard. There were more people in this courtyard now. He discovered that most of the people in the yard were old men with white beards and hair. Most of their cultivation bases were not high, but they all had gentle spiritual power. She also saw Master Yuehua in the crowd. Master Yuehua looked up at her and immediately walked forward respectfully and said, Mr. Shi, I have taken the medicinal pill you gave the day before. May I ask what kind of pill is that? How can it? He smiled slightly, flipped her wrist, and a bottle of medicinal pills appeared in her hand. The 3rd grade flame spirit pills, plus the total of 10 from yesterday, is 1 million crystal stones. Thank you. Master Yuehua's eyes widened. He said tremblingly, this is a flame spirit pill. A 3rd grade flame spirit pill can cure my disease? This. Is this the power of the best quality pill? Heshi said faintly, these flame spirit pills can remove the cold and dampness in your dantian, allowing you to reconsolidate the spiritual fire, but if you want to completely eradicate the hidden illness from your body, I still have to give you some treatment afterward. Thank you, miracle healer Shi. Master Yuehua excitedly took the flame spirit pill. As he was about to take out his crystal stones from the storage device to pay Heshi, he suddenly said with shame, Mr. Shi, sorry, all of my crystal stones are bet in the Changel gambling house, and I can't get that much money for a while. You, wait for me. I will borrow crystal stones from the city lord and then pay you. Heshi raised her eyebrows and said, Master Yuehua also bet. Master Yuehua blushed and nodded, I bet Mr. Shi to win. Heshi couldn't help but smile, oh, then you don't need to borrow money from the city lord. When I win, you can repay me after getting your crystal stones. Listening to her confident words, Master Yuehua was stunned for a while, not knowing what to say. Heshi couldn't help but point to the elders and said, Master Yuehua, who are these people? Oh, these people were also doctors who came to treat the young city lord before, but they were helpless against young city lord's illness, so after Fairy Jishi came, they left one after another. It's just, Master Yuehua's voice paused slightly, and he glanced at Heshi's face before continuing. It's just that they heard the news that Mr. and Fairy Jishi are having a competition in Yangon City, so they all come back. They want to see how the strange illness is cured. Heshi chuckled, oh, aren't there too many people who get the news? Gu Lufeng, by the side, heard Heshi's words and stepped forward and whispered, Shiyu, these people were actually found by the man surnamed Li. The man surnamed Li and Ren Shuling have been spreading news about you in Yangon City for the past few days. They said that you want to provoke Fairy Jishi to get fame from the people. Most of the people in Yangon City hate you now, but they can't enter the city lord's mansion, but these doctors who had treated the young city lord before can come in. Chapter 949, Kind and Naive, Oh, Psychological Warfare. Heshi nodded clearly, but she immediately threw a glance at Gu Lufeng again. However, things are so heated, you and Bai Hu are indispensable to contribute to the flames, right? Gu Lufeng laughed and slowly said, Shiyu really knows everything. That's right. Since Li Jinyu had spiced up the matter, if we don't take advantage of it and make a big profit, aren't you being scolded for nothing? Heshi raised her eyebrows, aren't you afraid that I will lose all our money? The money that Gu Lufeng bet naturally included in Heshi's share. Now Gu Lufeng was equivalent to her CEO. All assets and industries under Shiyu's name were managed by Gu Lufeng. Gu Lufeng was just like Nan Gongyu this time, he almost bet all the liquid funds. If he really loses all money, Zhou Yanan and Shi San would have nagged him to death. Gu Lufeng didn't care about what Heshi said. He smiled faintly, Shiyu, I know your medical skills better than anyone else, so I naturally trust you 100%. If I really lose, it can only be because I'm unlucky. I will admit that if that's the case. Heshi smiled and cursed, what can you admit? Most of them are my assets. Gu Lufeng nodded solemnly, so Shiyu, you won't lose, will you? As the two were chatting happily, there was a commotion from the crowd. Those doctors rushed in the direction of the east wing. Lu Jishi walking out of the house slowly in a green gauze skirt with a beautiful face and a cold expression. Behind her was Lu Yin, the maid in green, Li Jinyu and Ren Shuling. When the doctors saw Lu Jishi, they all bowed to her. Lu Jishi also politely responded to these people, Jishi is young and inexperienced, so I still have a lot to learn from the seniors in medical skills. I also hope that the seniors can give me some advice. Her modesty and politeness made these doctors feel good about her immediately. However, there were also some elderly doctors who came here today, just because they were interested in the treatment of the strange disease of the city lord's son. So after a few words of greeting, they immediately looked at Lu Jishi excitedly, Fairy Jishi, I heard that you already have a way to treat the young city lord's strange disease. What it is? Can you tell us? Before Lu Jishi had spoken, Ren Shuling had already said in displease, "Why, my senior sister wants to tell you her secret. You guys actually want to steal her secret?" As soon as these words came out, the old doctor who asked suddenly flushed red and lowered his head embarrassingly. Lu Jishi quickly reprimanded, "Shuling, don't talk nonsense. Dr. Chen has a high reputation and has been a 6th-rank physician for more than 10 years. He has more experience and knowledge than me. Why will he do such things?" She looked at the old doctor gently and said in a soft tone, "Dr. Chen, if you want to know the cure for that strange disease, it's not impossible." Before she finished her words, Li Zhenyu hurriedly stepped forward and interrupted her, "Jishi, why are you always so kind and naive?" He sighed lightly and looked in the direction of Heshi. His eyes were full of contempt before he slowly said, "Jishi, even if Dr. Chen is not the kind of shameless person who will steal your secret, it doesn't mean that others won't. Don't forget, you have a competition against Smion today. If you tell Dr. Chen about the treatment and someone steals it, then she will be the person with superb medical skills. How can that happen?" Chapter 950, I'm fine with it. The doctors couldn't help but glance at Heshi with disgust and contempt on their faces. Some people just don't know when to step down. Fairy Jishi said that she has a cure, he was not reconciled and even proposed a competition. I think he just wants to follow Fairy Jishi to get the benefits. When Fairy Jishi cures the illness, he will say that he is also using the same method. Isn't that he won't lose no matter how? Another doctor also said, "Humph. Such a shameless person is also worthy of being called a doctor. I think he forced Fairy Jishi to have a competition with him because he wants to get fame by using Fairy Jishi's name. See, who doesn't know about Shiyu now?" Lu Jishi heard the discussion from the crowd and couldn't help but sigh softly, "Please don't say that to Mr. Shi, his medical skills are really good. Especially when it comes to using poison, Jishi admits that I'm not as good as Mr. Shi." Use poison. The doctors present showed shocked and angry expressions. A doctor actually practices in using poison. No wonder he is so unscrupulous. Such a scum should not have the qualifications to practice medicine. I heard that he doesn't have a grade at all, he can't even be called a doctor. I think he drags Fairy Jishi in because he wants to enter the Doctors Association through Fairy Jishi, right? This kind of behavior is simply too outrageous. Why would the city lord let this kind of person to treat his son? I heard that it was Master Yuehua who invited him. Master Yuehua is getting old and confused nowadays, the doctors discussed on their own while looking at Heshi like she was a pile of garbage. In ancient times, the people had the problem of looking down on other people, so did the doctors here. Most of those who could become the 4th-rank doctor or above only studied in medical knowledge and had simple minds, so their expressions of emotions were extremely intense. Some people even wanted to call someone to drive Heshi and her party out. Master Yuehua's face was extremely ugly. Many of the fellow doctors not only glared at Heshi after whispering, they were also pointing at him. Those people looked at him with sympathy and ridicule, which gave him a bad premonition. At this time, Lu Jishi spoke again, "As for the treatment of young city lord, Jishi does not mean to hide it. If you all don't mind, when Jishi is treating young city lord, you all can watch it by the side. When the time comes, everyone will naturally see how Jishi treats." But, she paused, looked to Heshi, and said gently, "But this is after all me and Mr. Shi doing treatment. If Mr. Shi doesn't want outsiders to see, then Jishi can only say sorry to all doctors." Those doctors were all taken aback, and Dr. Chen reacted first. He looked at Heshi with scorching eyes and said loudly, "Little boy, you will not disagree, will you?" Heshi saw Dr. Chen's anxious expression and couldn't help but want to laugh. Seeing Dr. Chen, she felt like she had seen her crazy master. It was the kind of obsessed with one thing, and they would forget about everything else. It was just that her master was obsessed with wine, and Dr. Chen was obsessed with medical knowledge. Heshi nodded and said, "I'm fine with it." Chapter 951, First come first serve. Dr. Chen's eyes lit up, and a childlike smile appeared on his face. Okay. Okay. What are we waiting for? Let's go to the young city lord for immediate treatment. Wait. As soon as Dr. Chen finished speaking, Li Jinyu, who was standing next to Lu Jishi, suddenly stepped forward and said, "Before that, I have to confirm one thing." As he said, he looked at He with a cold gaze and said coldly, "Mr. Jishi will start the treatment first. Do you have no objection to this?" He narrowed her eyes slightly and said slowly, "I have no objection." A sneer flashed in Li Jinyu's eyes and continued, "Since Jishi starts first, if Jishi cures the young city lord, I don't know how to determine the win and lose." After a pause, he said again, "Why not we do this, when Jishi is treating, Mr. Shi will be waiting by the side. After Jishi treatment is over, you can tell your treatment plan. If your treatment plan is the same as Jishi's treatment, we count you as winning. Jishi, what do you think?" Lu Jishi nodded without hesitation. She said in a gentle voice, "Jinyu's suggestion is very good. I feel ashamed just because I have the advantage of treating first." She said, she looked at He and said, "Mr. Shi, if your treatment plan is the same as Jishi, then we will consider you win. We will also announce this to the people of Yangon City. It will be fairer to you too. What do you think?" When the doctors heard Lu Jishi's words, they immediately admired her even more. With such moral character and self-confidence, it was no wonder Fairy Jishi had such a strong reputation in Miluo continent. Just when everyone thought He would be grateful and happily agree to this condition, He shook her head and said, "No need. Win is win, lose is lose. First come first serve is also one of the conditions for competition. Oh, if Fairy Jishi still thinks that this time we are treating young city lord as a competition." When Lu Jishi heard her, she met her half-smile eyes scanning at Li Jinyu and Ren Shuling, and her face changed slightly, but she recollected herself in a short time. He continued, "As long as Fairy Jishi cures the young city lord's disease first, I lose. Whether it is the outcome of the Changelfang gambling house or the final announcement to the people of Chang'an City, they will base on this results." But, Lu Jishi wanted to say something, but Ren Shuling spoke before her, "Ha ha ha, senior sister, since she is looking for death, why are you still nice to her? Just wait until you cure the young city lord, she will taste the loss that she seeks for herself." Li Jinyu also showed a satisfied look on his face and nodded, "Jishi, Shuling is right. Since this is what Mr. Shi requested, why should we force her?" I said that just to make Shiyu admit the order of first come first serve. Although if Jishi cures the disease first, Shiyu will automatically lose, but if this kid doesn't admit defeat and try to ruin Jishi's reputation by saying it is unfair? So I called in all the doctors and used words to force Shiyu to admit the treatment sequence. Even if Shiyu loses and wants to renege in the future, with these doctors as witnesses, this kid won't be able to stir up any troubles. Chapter 952, Symptom. While several people were talking, they saw Zhuge Feng hurriedly coming from outside the courtyard. At this time, Zhuge Feng was a little sweaty, and his eyes were full of anxiety. When he saw Lu Jishi and He, he hurriedly stepped forward, "Greetings to two doctors." Ren Shuling took a step forward and said, "Uncle Zhuge, didn't you say that Brother Xiaotian will be sent to Lanxiang courtyard today for my senior sister to be treated? Where is he?" Zhuge Feng wiped the sweat from his forehead and said, "Fairy Jishi, I was planning to transfer my son here with a black cloth litter to let two doctors treat him. But this morning, my son's illness is acting again. I really can't move him." Lu Jishi had seen Zhuge Xiaotian's illness, and she immediately nodded, "Anywhere can do the treatment, I will follow City Lord Zhuge to the young City Lord's residence." "Mr. Shi, how about you?" He naturally wouldn't disagree. For her, where to see a doctor is not the same. It was just that she just agreed, then she saw Lu Jishi's flickering eyes, and Ren Shuling on the side showed a look of gloating. Zhuge Feng was overjoyed when the two agreed. The doctors in Lanxiang courtyard also wanted to follow, they couldn't wait to see how Fairy Jishi treat this strange disease. However, Zhuge Feng showed an embarrassed expression on his face. "Doctors, the situation of my son is really horrifying, it's better to wait here for a while." These doctors had treated Zhuge Xiaotian, but most of them were treating when Zhuge Xiaotian's condition was fairly stable. Many doctors had never seen Zhuge Xiaotian's real illness. Of course, doctors such as Dr. Chen, who was highly respected and had excellent medical skills, in order to give better treatment, had already seen this symptom a long time ago. Dr. Chen would not be scared, but it did not mean that other doctors would not be scared. Especially, Zhuge Feng couldn't help but glance at Heshi, who seemed to be only 16. Will he faint when seeing Xiaotian's current condition? Seeing that all doctors must go with him, Zhuge Feng had no choice but to agree. Along the way, Zhuge Feng did not conceal his son's symptoms and told Lu Zixi and Heshi in detail. In fact, Xiaotian has been a little different from other babies from the time he was born. He often bites his nanny when he drinks milk. When he gets older, he even bites when he catches people, and sometimes he even drinks human blood. But this situation disappeared after he grew up to cultivate. I also forgot about these symptoms of his childhood. Until one time he went to a secret realm to practice, the same thing happened again. Zhuge Feng frowned. His face full of pain and self-blame. When Xiaotian came back from the beginning, he often felt uncomfortable when he saw the sun. He likes to stay indoors, and he likes to eat raw fish. When he eats meat, his eyes are bloodshot. I even urged him to quickly cultivate so that he can get to the perfect stage of the meridian stage as soon as possible. But, one night, Xiaotian, who was originally meditating in the room, suddenly rushed out with a scream. He grabbed a wind spirit rabbit raised in the yard, bit it, and drank its blood. But he still didn't get enough, he even bit the servant, /. Chapter 953, Strange Scene, he seems to have gone crazy. When going out in daytime, he even struggles and rolls on the ground, wanting to scratch off his skin. The more Zhuge Feng said, the more solemn his painful expression became. At this time, I knew that Xiaotian should have been seriously ill. But in the past 6 months, I have searched for all the doctors, no one can cure this disease. If I can discover it earlier and let Master Yuehua treat him sooner, maybe he won't. Zhuge Feng closed his eyes and took a deep breath before continuing. In desperation, I had to keep Xiaotian in the dark basement and let people collect fresh blood for him to drink every day. But last month, I found that his demand for blood is increasing, and he often can only drink the fresh blood just got from the beast. Even if it is delayed for a while, it is difficult for him to eat. If this continues, he may not live long. As Zhuge Feng, his eyes were slightly red. He gritted his teeth and said, "What's more, Xiaotian had been proud of himself since he was a child. Now he could only feed on fresh blood and live under the basement. He is now more and more decadent now. He doesn't want to live anymore. Fairy Zixi, miracle healer Shi." Zhuge Feng bowed deeply to the two of them. "Please save my son." While listening to what Zhuge Feng said, Lu Zixi showed a thoughtful expression on her face. Ren Shuling couldn't help but approached her and whispered, "Senior sister, do you know what this disease is?" Lu Zixi smiled and nodded, and she responded in a low voice, "In fact, when I treated Zhuge Xiaotian last time, I was already suspicious. Now, after hearing City Master Zhuge say it in detail, I'm more confident in it. Last time, it was only a rough exploration. This time, I still need a careful examination before I can determine the treatment." Ren Shuling was overjoyed when she heard the words, and she said happily, "City Lord Zhuge, don't worry, my senior sister already knew about Brother Xiaotian's illness in her heart, and she has a treatment plan. A few days later, Brother Xiaotian will naturally be cured." As she said, she glanced at Heshi contemptuously. She sneered, "Unlike some people who don't know anything and dare to pretend to be a doctor. Pooey. Let's see how she pretends when she is exposed." When Zhuge Feng heard Ren Shuling say that Lu Zixi did have a cure, he was overjoyed. His attitude toward Lu Zixi became more ardent, and he forgot about Shiyu. Although Shiyu was somewhat famous, he was only a 16-years-old boy if he really had the ability to treat strange diseases. Several people quickly came down to an underground secret room under the lead of Zhuge Feng. The secret room was very luxurious. The furnishings in the room were comfortable and beautiful. The only drawback was that the whole room was a bit dim. The lighting equipment used was not the popular crystal stone of Miluo continent, but a dim candle. As soon as they entered the secret room, everyone found a strange sight. All the guard servants here are wearing a layer of hard and heavy armor from head to toe. Bai Hu couldn't help but yelled, "This is obviously the city lord's home, not on the battlefield. Why do these people still wear heavy armor? Will someone come to assassinate this young city lord?" Chapter 954, Porphyria Heshi shook her head and said faintly, "You have said the opposite." This time, only Nan Gongyu, Bai Hu, and Gu Lufeng came to diagnose with Heshi. Because of the special and terrifying disease, Heshi left Shinqingchua and Mo Xiaotu in the Lanxiang courtyard. Bai Hu was taken aback. As he was about to ask again, Heshi ignored him and walked inside. Zhuge Feng led everyone to walk quickly to the door of a room. He gently pressed the door lock with his hand and said in a deep voice, "Everyone, please don't be frightened by what you see later." The doctors present all showed disapproval expressions. They were so knowledgeable. What kind of patients had they not seen before? Wasn't this Zhuge Xiaotian just like sucking blood? How terrible could it be? Thinking like this, Zhuge Feng opened the door. The light inside the door was more dim and darker than the outside, but everyone saw the scene inside through the luminous pearl. A man with disheveled hair was sucking blood from a windy rabbit. With the swallowing motion, his Adam's apple moved up and down. The blood leaked out from his mouth and dropped on his white finger. Hearing the movement of the door, the man who was sucking blood raised his head, revealing a blood-stained face. When everyone saw this face, they all took a deep breath. Some timid people even stepped back and fell down on the ground. At this time, the man bared his teeth and smiled because he had sucked blood, but his teeth were not ordinary white or yellow, but purple. His gums were completely rotted, revealing the dense roots of his teeth. The man's facial features were already clearly visible at this time, because there were signs of ulceration in the area from his forehead to his nose. Even his eyelids were mostly corroded by that ulcer, revealing round, scary eyes. A doctor couldn't help but say in a tremble, This is young city lord Zhuge. It's impossible. I saw the young city lord a month ago. How did he become like this now?" Zhuge Feng frowned and sighed, "My son's illness has become more and more serious now. He seems like he isn't going to live long. This is why I even took out my family treasure Divine Soul Jade as a reward." Ren Shuling originally wanted to see Heshi make a fool of herself when the door was opened. But now seeing Zhuge Xiaotian's current look, she also screamed in fright, but she quickly reacted and calmed down. She saw Heshi staring at Zhuge Xiaotian in the room without moving, thinking she was too scared to move. She immediately laughed, walked a few steps in her direction and ridiculed, "Miracle healer Shi, didn't you just boast that you can definitely treat Brother Xiaotian's disease? Why? You are too frightened that you can't even move now." Yes, Heshi was a little stunned, but of course, it was not because of fear, but she finally confirmed that Zhuge Xiaotian's disease was the vampire disease she had seen in her previous life. The scientific name was porphyria. Porphyria, also known as hematoporphyrinism, made the patient very sensitive to light. Once the patient was exposed to light, the porphyrin would be transformed into a carnivorous toxin, which would make the patient lose his sanity and become a bloodthirsty vampire. In her previous life, Heshi had also encountered a patient suffering from porphyria, but due to drug limitations, she could not completely cure the patient. This was also one of her regrets. Chapter 955, Blood-sucking scene. But now the world was different. She once saw an elixir in the record of everything. Its medicinal properties and effects were very likely to be able to solve the underlying cause of the disease. Therefore, when He heard Nan Gongyu talk about Zhuge Xiaotian's illness for the first time, she suspected that he had gotten porphyria, so she was very anticipated to be able to treat it again. He was amused when she heard Ren Shuling's yelling. As she was about to speak, she suddenly noticed the changes in Zhuge Xiaotian's aura. She almost didn't even think about it and took a step back, and she also pulled Dr. Chen, who was the closest to her. Ren Shuling couldn't help but laugh more when she saw her retreating. "Coward, you actually run away. You still dare to talk to my senior sister." Before she finished her words, everyone showed a horrified expression. Immediately afterward, Zhuge Feng shouted in shock, "Miss Ren, step back." However, it was too late. Ren Shuling only felt something pounced on her, followed by a bloody heat against her neck and ear. Ren Shuling's eyes widened in horror with a pale face. She wanted to look back to see what it was, but her whole body was trembling. She didn't dare to move at all. The next moment, she felt a sharp pain on her neck and heard the sound of the sharp teeth piercing her flesh, making her scream hysterically. All the people in the basement panicked. It turned out that Zhuge Xiaotian in the dark room hadn't sucked enough blood yet, so he suddenly rushed to the Ren Shuling who was the nearest and bit her neck. Zhuge Feng was panicking. He quickly commanded the heavy armored guards in the basement to get them to rescue Ren Shuling. But Ren Shuling was already frightened. Her spiritual power was channeled like crazy. The frost condensed from the ice spiritual power attacked Zhuge Xiaotian, causing his body to be riddled with holes. He finally let her go. Ren Shuling pushed a doctor beside her to Zhuge Xiaotian without thinking and shouted, "Don't suck my blood. Go suck someone else's. Suck his." Sure enough, Zhuge Xiaotian immediately bit on the doctor's neck. Ah! Although the doctor was also at the meridian stage, he had never practiced any offensive skills. At this time, he fainted right away after being bit by Zhuge Xiaotian on his neck. When other doctors saw him fainted, they thought he was killed by Zhuge Xiaotian. They shouted in shock, "Kill him! Kill him! Kill this monster!" Everyone took out magic weapons one after another with faces full of horror, and they were about to attack Zhuge Xiaotian. Zhuge Feng's anxious eyes were red. Although he knew that his son's symptoms were terrible today, he didn't expect that his son's condition would have deteriorated to such an extent in one night. In the past, he just had to suck 3 wind spirit rabbits to regain his consciousness, but this time, after consuming the blood of 6 wind spirit rabbits, the disease is still triggered. In the past, even if he was bloodthirsty, Zhuge Xiaotian would not attack people madly, but today, why is it today? If my son is killed as a blood-sucking monster, then I. Zhuge Feng was anxiously like an ant on a hot pot. Suddenly, he saw a figure move slightly and came to Zhuge Xiaotian and the fainted doctor. Chapter 956, Admiration. It was Shiyu. Shiyu spread the medicinal powder in his hand, then Zhuge Xiaotian paused slightly and loosened his teeth. His whole body shook too. At this time, Lu Zixi also moved. A wisp of white smoke was suddenly released from her hand, and the white smoke hurried toward Zhuge Xiaotian in a spiral shape. In the blink of an eye, it submerged in Zhuge Xiaotian's nose. After sucking in the white smoke, he looked even more dazzled. Finally, he couldn't hold it up and fell to the ground. When Lu Zixi saw that Zhuge Xiaotian was finally subdued, she breathed a sigh of relief. She lifted up her shocked junior sister apprentice and said softly, "Shuling, it's fine now. Zhuge Xiaotian has been knocked out by my knockout incense." Everyone was overjoyed when they heard the words. At the same time, they also greatly praised Lu Zixi's methods. Although it was just a simple process of casting incense. However, being able to condense the smoke into a wisp that only affected Zhuge Xiaotian, it could be seen that how high Fairy Zixi's medical skills and cultivation was. Ren Shuling finally settled down at this moment, touching the wound on her neck. Her body still trembled in fright, and she said in a sobbing tone, Senior sister, that monster is so scary. He bit me, that scary face and teeth. That monster bit me. Senior sister, will I be infected by this monster and become a monster too? Woo. I don't want, senior sister, you must save me. Ren Shuling's remarks made Zhuge Feng's face look extremely unsightly. He also knew that his son was now like a monster that was crazy and ugly and loved to suck human blood. But that was his only son, who would be happy if others describe his son as a monster. Lu Zixi and Ren Shuling did not notice Zhuge Feng's emotional changes at all. Seeing Ren Shuling's anxiety, Lu Zixi quickly comforted, Shuling, you can rest assured that this disease is not contagious, and you will not become a monster. This bite wound will heal after a few days. Ren Shuling was relieved now. Li Zhenyu looked at Lu Zixi admiringly and said, Zixi, thanks to you that the trouble was solved. Unlike someone, he did nothing except running away. With that, he cast a scornful look at Heshi. Lu Zixi smiled slightly, glanced in the direction of Nan Gongyu, and then faintly said, Zhenyu, don't talk like this. Everyone will react differently to the crisis. I'm not afraid of young city lord Zhuge because I have had a lot of experience in treating patients. I have seen a lot of diseases that are more terrifying than the young city lord. Mr. Shi is afraid is probably because of too little experience. Heshi had returned to her original position at this time. She just smiled casually hearing that and didn't intend to argue at all. The doctors present were all grateful and admired Lu Zixi, but they all showed contempt and disdain for Heshi. Although they didn't see the appearance of the boy named Shiyu running away, since elderly said that, it was naturally true. In the whole basement, apart from Nan Gongyu and the others, the only people who saw Heshi's actions were old Dr. Chen and Zhuge Feng. Chapter 957, Rare Spiritual Power. However, Zhuge Feng suspected that the scene he just saw was just his own illusion because when he came back to his senses, he found that Shiyu still stood in the original position and had not moved while Zhuge Xiaotian's whole body was filled with Lu Zhixi's incense. But Dr. Chen was different. He was dragged back by Heshi. If Heshi hadn't dragged him away just now, then Zhuge Xiaotian would attack him first instead of Ren Shuling. Later, he saw this young man come appeared beside Zhuge Xiaotian with his own eyes and used some kind of medicine to stop Zhuge Xiaotian's blood-sucking action. Even his turbid eyes had become clear. When Dr. Chen thought that Zhuge Xiaotian would soon wake up and regain his sanity. But soon, Lu Zixi released the incense to make Zhuge Xiaotian fall asleep. Dr. Chen looked at Shiyu. He was just a young man who looked delicate and handsome, but at this moment, he felt a mysterious feeling from him. Dr. Chen coughed and said softly, Mr. Shi, thank you for your life-saving grace just now. Heshi smiled carelessly, it's not a life-saving grace, just a simple help. Heshi was telling the truth. Even if he was sucked by Zhuge Xiaotian, as long as his blood wasn't sucked dry, it would not be fatal. So, it was not a life-saving grace. Dr. Chen hesitated for a moment and couldn't help but whisper, Mr. Shi, just now, the person, who let the young city lord release Dr. Mo, is you right? Heshi smiled and did not speak. Lu Zixi slightly bowed to Zhuge Feng and said, City Lord Zhuge, the young city lord is now in critical condition and can no longer be delayed. I will treat him right now. Zhuge Feng nodded again and again. His only hope now was that his son's illness would get better. As for whether there would be rumors that young city lord Zhuge was a vampire monster in the future, he could no longer care about this. The bed for temporary treatment was prepared quickly. Lu Zixi sat in front of the bed with a graceful figure. Her body was radiating a faint light because of the channeling of the spiritual power. She looked like a fairy who would bring salvation to the people. As the water spiritual power and wind spiritual power went into Zhuge Xiaotian's body, Zhuge Xiaotian's complexion actually looked better. A doctor found out and couldn't help but exclaimed, what kind of spiritual power is this? Why can it heal by just running in the patient's meridians? Ren Shuling said triumphantly, you don't know this? My sister's water spiritual power and wind spiritual power are extremely pure. When the two spiritual powers are used together, they can the human meridians and restore the vitality of martial artists. Even nascent soul stage martial artists ask my senior sister to treat their meridians. It's just that my senior sister has always been low-key and never talks about her skills. Unlike someone who comes out of a small country, he only has a little bit of skill, but he still wants to boost himself. He isn't afraid of making a fool of himself at all. As soon as Ren Shuling said this, all martial artists looked at Lu Zixi in shock and amazement. Born with the spiritual power that heals the meridians? Does this kind of spiritual power really exist in the world? It's no wonder that Fairy Zixi can become a 6th grade doctor at such a young and has such a reputation. Chapter 958, Bring It On. It turned out that her talent and ability in medical skills were so outstanding. Lu Zixi only smiled when she heard the words. She couldn't help looking in Nan Gongyu's direction with her peripheral vision. She thought that this man would show a look of wonder when he heard her special and rarity and would look at her differently. However, Lu Zixi saw Nan Gongyu leaning close to Shi Yu's ear to speak affectionately. Although she couldn't see clearly due to the mist, she could feel his tenderness and pampering. Lu Zixi grasped her hands tightly, then she immediately returned to normal. She smiled faintly to everyone. Zixi skill is really insignificant. I really don't deserve to be praised by everyone. It is just that if I can use this ability to relieve the patient's pain, then I'm satisfied. After hearing this, the doctors admired Lu Zixi even more. They already regarded her as a master of medical skills instead of a girl in her early 20s. Li Jianyu stared at Landing Zixi with fiery eyes. His eyes were full of fanaticism and reverence. Lu Zixi probed Zhuge Xiaotian for half an hour before retracting the spiritual power somewhat tiredly. Zhuge Feng looked at her hopefully and asked quickly, Fairy Zixi, can my child's illness be cured? Lu Zixi let out a sigh of relief, wiped the sweat from her face, and nodded. I have learned about young city lord's condition in detail, maybe I can give it a try. I'm about 70 to 80% sure that the young city lord can be cured. Fairy Zixi, is that true? Xiaotian's illness can really be cured? Zhuge Feng was shocked that both eyes were almost protruding, and his body was trembling slightly with excitement. Lu Zixi nodded and said, I wonder if City Lord Zhuge can get enough blood-sucking golden silkworms. Blood-sucking golden silkworm? Zhuge Feng was taken aback for a moment. There is no blood-sucking golden silkworm in the City Lord's mansion, but if Fairy Zixi needs it, I will send someone to collect it immediately. One of the doctors hurriedly stepped forward after hearing the words, blood-sucking golden silkworms. I have. A few years ago, in order to refine a kind of medicinal pill, I raised a lot of blood-sucking golden silkworms. I have hundreds of them. Zhuge Feng was overjoyed when he heard this, and he quickly called a guard to accompany the doctor back to get the blood-sucking golden silkworms. While waiting for the blood-sucking golden silkworms, everyone in the basement sat down and waited to see Lu Zixi's treatment method. Ren Shuling saw He and others sitting on a couch by the side, and she couldn't help dragging Li Jianyu to them, condescendingly mocking, some people right. They really won't give up until they really lose. They obviously knew that my senior sister has won. If they know their limit, they should have given up earlier. They are just trying to hold on persistently. Won't they feel shame when they lose? Bai Hu looked up and sneered, hee, I don't know who will be ashamed by then. Miss Ren is so anxious to ask my young master to quit. Are you thinking that if Fairy Zixi can't cure it, no one else will try to cure it, right? Li Jianyu listened to the insulting words to Zixi, and he immediately said with a gloomy face, you better put your mouth clean, otherwise don't blame me for being rude. Bai Hu laughed, leaning back on the couch and lazily said, oh, I really want to see you being rude. Why don't you do it right now? Li Jianyu's eyes flashed sinisterly, and he kept the folding fan and was about to take out his weapon. Chapter 959, True Face. Upon seeing this, Master Yuehua stepped forward and stopped Li Jianyu and Ren Shuling, Elder Li and Miss Ren. We are now in the ward of the young city lord. The illness of the young city lord has yet to be treated by Fairy Jishi. Please take a step back and don't make it difficult for the city lord. Li Jianyu's gaze full of sneer fell on Master Yuehua's face, then he snorted and turned back to Lu Jishi. Ren Shuling couldn't help but sneered and said, Master Yuehua, you really like to favor this Shiyu. I heard that you still bet all your belongings on this Shiyu at the Changle gambling house. Does Master Yuehua really think Shiyu can win against my senior sister? TSK. Is it that Shiyu and you have some sneaky business? After all, it's not the first time that people in Yanjing City say that Shiyu likes Ma. Before she finished speaking, Ren Shuling suddenly felt a strong wind hit her face, making her scream. She staggered back. Immediately afterward, she spat out a mouthful of blood, and there was a tooth in it. Her left cheek swelled up quickly. Ren Shuling was stunned for a while. She looked at the bloody teeth in her hand in disbelief, then she met Nan Gongyu's bloodthirsty gaze as she looked up. The cold and low male voice had a charming tone, but at this time it sounded like Shura from hell. Say that again if you dare. Ren Shuling shuddered all over, and tears of fear slid down her eyes uncontrollably. Lu Jishi had already rushed over at this time, guarding Ren Shuling behind her. She was looking at Heshi in distress and anger. She coldly said, Mr. Shi, if you are angry, unleash it to me. Shuling is just a child. Why do you have to humiliate her in such a way? Don't you feel ashamed? Heshi raised her eyebrows and asked inconceivably, am I the one who hit her just now? Is this woman crazy or something? It's obviously Nan Gongyu who beat her. What does she accuse me now? Lu Jishi sneered, I have seen people like you a lot. You like to use men to shoulder your responsibility. But, I have to advise Mr. Shi to not go over your limit. Someone will notice your true face one day. By the time, it will be too late for you to regret it. After Lu Jishi finished speaking, without waiting for Nan Gongyu and Heshi to refute, she dragged Ren Shuling back to their original position. Heshi smiled meaningfully at Nan Gongyu, and she suddenly said in enlightenment, it turns out that she didn't say these things to me, but to someone. Your Highness King of Hell, when can you see through my true face? Nan Gongyu scratched the tip of her nose and leaned close to her ear and whispered in a low voice, of course, it's when I have tasted you from your inside to outside. The scorching gaze full of passion glanced around her body as he said those obvious words. Heshi blushed and pushed the shameless man away. Damn, I wanted to tease him initially, but I'm actually being teased back. About a quarter of an hour had passed. Zhuge Feng led the doctor who took the blood-sucking golden silkworms in hurriedly. Lu Jishi took the golden silkworms and checked it, and a smile appeared on her face. These blood-sucking golden silkworms are well raised. I believe they can save the young city lord. Chapter 960, How to Treat. With that said, she let people remove the clothes on Zhuge Xiaotian's hands and feet, revealing the skin inside. However, Lu Jishi frowned when she saw Zhuge Xiaotian's exposed skin. Ren Shuling, standing behind Lu Jishi, couldn't help but exclaim, yikes, disgusting. It's all rotten. Sister, don't touch him, otherwise your hands will stink. The slender jade held the blood-sucking golden silkworm actually hesitated for a moment. The skin of Zhuge Xiaotian's hands and feet already had some ulcerated red spot, some even had purulent and bleeding. Just looking at it made one's scalp numb and nauseous. Not to mention reaching out to check his meridians and put the blood-sucking golden silkworm. Lu Yin, who was serving by Lu Jishi's side, looked at the terrifying sore and was also disgusted. She frowned and said, Miss, although you are a doctor, you are also an innocent girl. How can you touch the naked body of a man? I think you should let other doctors do this kind of thing. Lu Jishi showed a look of embarrassment. Dr. Chen, who was waiting to see Lu Jishi's treatment method, saw that she was still not moving. He couldn't help but anxiously said, Fairy Jishi, if you don't want to touch the wounds of the young city lord, it's better to let me do it. You tell me what to do. Lu Jishi frowned first, then she immediately stood up with a gentle smile and apologized. Jishi just didn't think of the gender difference. If I directly touch young Master Zhuge's body, it would be a bit improper. Thanks for that, Dr. Chen. Dr. Chen hurriedly sat in the place where Lu Zhishi had just been. Under the guidance of Lu Zhishi, he slowly found the meridians on Zhuge Xiaotian's hands and feet and put the blood-sucking golden silkworms on them. The blood-sucking golden silkworm instinctively sucked blood when it was put on. The faint golden outer shell also gradually turned blood red. As the blood was slowly sucked by the golden silkworms, Zhuge Xiaotian's face became pale, and his expression slowly changed from being drowsy to frowning pain. Zhuge Feng said anxiously, Fairy Zhishi, if this continues, wouldn't Xiaotian lose too much blood and die? Lu Zhishi smiled slightly, took out a medicinal pill from her storage device, stuffed it into Zhuge Xiaotian's mouth, and used spiritual power to run in his body to help digesting the medicinal pill. After a while, Zhuge Xiaotian's originally pale complexion gradually turned into a blush, and his expression gradually changed from the original pain and irritability to calmness. Lu Zhishi met Zhuge Feng's surprised eyes, then she slowly smiled, I just let the young city lord take the Lingxue pill made by my father himself. Lingxue pill? Zhuge Feng was taken aback for a moment, then surprised, is it the 4th grade medicinal pills that can replenish human blood in a short period of time? Lu Zhishi nodded, then she looked at Heshi and Nangang Yu slightly before looking back at the doctors, saying loudly, at the Lanxiang courtyard, the doctors asked me about the treatment plan for young city lord's illness. Zhishi will now explain it in detail. All the doctors were overjoyed when they heard the words. Everyone looked at Lu Zhishi eagerly. Even Dr. Chen, who had just put the golden silkworm on Zhuge Xiaotian, looked at Lu Zhishi eagerly. Lu Zhishi smiled and said, this disease of young city lord can be said to have never been seen in the entire Miluo continent. This is why the experienced doctors here are helpless against it. Chapter 961, The Enlightenment of Everyone. She said that to please all the doctors here, and the eyes of these doctors looking at her with kindness. Lu Zhishi continued, but Zhishi happened to have seen this disease in an ancient book left by a predecessor. This disease is called vampire disease. People with this disease are bloodthirsty and afraid of exposure to sunlight. It is a disease that has nothing to do with dantian and meridians, but it exists in human blood. What? Vampire disease? It has nothing to do with the dantian and meridians, it only exists in the blood? There is even such a disease in the world. Lu Zhishi paused slightly and looked at Heshi, Mr. Shi, do you have any objections to Zhishi's diagnosis? Heshi smiled and shook her head, no. Ren Shuling touched her aching cheeks, then she stared at Heshi fiercely and sneered, of course you have no objections. I think you don't really know what kind of disease Brother Xiaotian has, right? Stop pretending here. Bah! When my senior sister treated Brother Xiaotian, let's see what else you have to say. Heshi picked up a cup of tea and took a sip with a smile, completely ignoring Ren Shuling. Ren Shuling only felt that she was aggrieved. Dr. Chen, who only cared about the condition, couldn't help but said, Fairy Zhishi, you said that this cause is hidden in the blood, but how do you treat it? Lu Zhishi pointed to the blood-sucking golden silkworm and said, the treatment of vampire disease is actually very simple. It is to use the characteristics of golden silkworm to suck blood and Lingxue pill to replenish blood to replace all the blood in the patient's body. As she said, she looked at Heshi, then she looked back at the doctors again, showing an expression with a deep meaning, so, as long as you have seen what Zhishi did once, all the doctors here can treat this disease. The doctors couldn't cure the disease at first was just because you didn't understand the disease. As soon as Lu Zhishi said this, all the doctors suddenly looked enlightened. The cause in the blood, so as long as we replace the blood, we can treat it. That's it. That's it. Fairy Zhishi really deserves to be a genius in medical skills. You can actually think of such a way to treat this strange disease. It's really a talented junior. Ha, it's just that this method seems simple, but only Fairy Zhishi can think of it. Fairy Zhishi is naturally amazing, but for those who follow her method of treatment later on, it will be a different case, as the doctors said, they looked at Heshi with contempt. They were already 90% sure at this time that Fairy Jishi would definitely cure Zhuge Xiaotian's disease, and the miracle healer called Shi would only lose face in this Yangon city and leave in grief. After Lu Jishi explained the condition, he checked Zhuge Xiaotian's condition, then she said to Dr. Chen, "Old Dr. Chen, please change another batch of golden silkworms." In this way, after 3 rounds of blood replacing, Zhuge Xiaotian finally woke up slowly. When Zhuge Feng saw his son awake, he immediately threw himself in front of his son with joy and shouted excitedly, "Xiaotian, you finally woke up? What do you think?" Zhuge Xiaotian still had red spots on his face and hands, but these 3 rounds of blood replacing made him look much better. The initially purple teeth had returned normal now. Chapter 962, Great Kindness. Especially when he opened his eyes with clear eyes, all other people knew that he had returned normal. Zhuge Xiaotian pressed his temple and said dumbly, "Father, what's wrong with me? Am I sick again?" Thinking of the horrible and disgusting appearance when he fell ill, Zhuge Xiaotian couldn't help crying, "Father, instead of living like this, you might as well let me die. Living such a shameful life. I can't do anything except drinking blood." Zhuge Feng grabbed his son's hand, ignoring the disgusting sores on his hand, then he said, "Xiaotian, don't worry, Dad has found a doctor who can treat you. You will definitely get better." Lu Jishi also stepped forward and used spiritual power to investigate Zhuge Xiaotian's condition carefully, then she asked gently, "Young city lord, how do you feel now?" Zhuge Xiaotian frowned in a daze, then opened his eyes slightly and said in disbelief, I think I feel better. I don't have the urge to drink blood. Moreover, I even feel a little hungry." "What?" Zhuge Feng exclaimed, his expression was ecstatic. "Xiaotian, is that real? You are feeling hungry now? You don't want to drink blood, but you want to eat normal spiritual food?" Zhuge Xiaotian touched his flat stomach, and he heard the cooing sound from his stomach. A surprised expression appeared on his face. "Father, I'm really hungry, I want to eat rice." "Great! Great! Great! Dad will ask someone to cook for you now." Zhuge Feng burst into tears with excitement, and his hands grabbing Zhuge Xiaotian's hands were trembling. "Quickly ask the servant to serve food for the young master." After a while, an exquisite meal was served. Zhuge Xiaotian almost devoured the food. As the food rich in spiritual power entered his abdomen, the scary sores on his face and body as well as the suppurative wounds were all gradually healed. His handsome facial features also appeared. Zhuge Feng looked at his son eating like a normal person with tears coming out non-stop. He suddenly walked in front of Lu Jishi, bowed deeply to her, and tremblingly said, "Fairy Jishi's great kindness, I Zhuge Feng have nothing to repay, but if Fairy Jishi needs my help in the future, I will never say no." Lu Jishi stretched out her hand and waved slightly with a gentle smile. "Lord Zhuge doesn't have to be polite. Jishi is a doctor, and treating patients is what I should do." Lu Jishi was polite, but Ren Shuling was not polite. Seeing Zhuge Feng's gratitude look and seeing Zhuge Xiaotian could eat, she took it as her senior sister had treated him completely. She suddenly jumped out and stretched out her hand to Zhuge Feng. "Uncle Zhuge, my senior sister cured Xiaotian, and you just say thank you? What about the divine soul jade you promised my senior sister? Quickly hand it out." Zhuge Feng hurriedly said, "How would I dare to break the promise with Fairy Jishi? But divine soul jade needs warmth to be stored, so I didn't bring it in my storage ring. I will definitely give it to Fairy Jishi." Ren Shuling nodded in satisfaction, then she turned around, pointed at Heshi and others and sneered, "Right, there are these bitches." Chapter 963, Swindler. Now that my senior sister has cured brother Xiaotian's disease, it means that this group of bitches has lost. Uncle Zhuge, what are you waiting for? Why don't you quickly kick these swindlers out of the mansion? Zhuge Feng's expression froze, and he looked embarrassed. this, Shuling, wouldn't it be too easy for them to kick them out? Li Jinyu stepped forward and gently shook the fan. Before they go, they must apologize to Jishi and admit that they have lost. They also have to confess to all Yangon City's people on the city wall that they are swindlers. Only that can make up for the offense they did against Jishi. Ren Shuling suddenly laughed while clapping. Cousin, you are right. Since they lose, they are naturally swindlers. Since they are swindlers, then they should admit their mistakes in front of everyone. Otherwise, we must not let them go. Li Jinyu looked at the doctors and said, Doctors, you are also witnesses to this medical skills competition. I'm not being overbearing, but this Shi Yu and his followers are really too much. He just wanted to use Jishi's name to gain fame for himself, but he even slandered Jishi and even hurt Shuling several times. Such a bad act, if he is not severely punished, wouldn't he be even more dangerous in the future? When Li Jinyu said this, the doctors present immediately agreed with him in indignation. Elder Li is right, Shiyu, this ignorant kid is really too overbearing. He dared to provoke Fairy Jishi. He must be taught a lesson. We are all witnesses. We will take him up to the city wall for a while and let him kneel on the wall to apologize to everyone. When Master Yuehua saw Zhuge Xiaotian was able to eat and the wound on his face gradually healed, he had a foreboding that Shi Yu would lose. He also sighed in his heart. He felt sorry for his bet, but now he heard that this group of people humiliated Shi Yu so much, his heart was filled with anger. This Shi Yu can see through my illness with his naked eyes, and he can cure my persistent illness for more than 10 years with a single medicinal pill. How could he be a swindler? He endured it, but he couldn't hold it at last. He stepped up and blocked in front of all doctors. Doctors, please listen to me. Miracle healer, she is definitely not the swindler that you think of. I swear by my career that his medical skills and pill refining skills are absolutely superb. Hearing the words, the doctors couldn't but stop and show a suspicious look. Seeing everyone calm down, Master Yuehua hurriedly said loudly, I have witnessed this miracle healer she's medical skills myself. I can guarantee that his medical skills are definitely not worse than Fairy Jishi, and he is far greater than me. He lost to Fairy Jishi only because Fairy Jishi had the upper hand to treat first, not because he is not as skilled as others. If you don't believe it, you can put another test for the two of them. Before Master Yuehua finished, a doctor in his 40s with triangular eyes stepped forward and sneered, Master Yuehua, I heard that you have been suffering from a strange disease more than 10 years ago. Your Dantian can't gather spiritual fire at all, let alone refining pill. Now you don't even have the ability to treat patients, what can you guarantee with? Chapter 964, Yuehua's Nightmare. What? Master Yuehua can't refine pill anymore. You can't see a patient. Is this real? Then Master Yuehua can still be called a fourth-rank doctor. Hasn't he been swindling for more than 10 years then? Wah! He is actually a liar. No wonder this Master Yuehua wants to guarantee Shi Yu. Maybe it was Shi Yu who discovered Master Yuehua's secret and used it as a threat. After all, if someone knew that he can't refine pill and see patient, his career as a doctor would be ruined. Master Yuehua only felt a bang in his head like being stripped naked and thrown on the street in broad daylight. His face was flushed, and his heart was filled with fear, anger, and sadness. He opened and closed his mouth for a long time, but he couldn't say a word. Over the past 10 years, not being able to refine pills had become his nightmare. He often imagined that his illness was discovered, then he lost his qualifications as a doctor, lost everything, and was never able to practice medicine anymore. This nightmare lasted until he met Shi Yu. He thought he finally saw hope. But suddenly, his nightmare and scars were discovered by people. They questioned and mocked him, and the people who mocked him were all his colleagues. This feeling really made him want to die immediately. Zhuge Feng hurried over to defend his friend, but the doctors, who were so agitated that they were deceived, wouldn't listen to him. More and more doctors began to criticize Master Yuehua. Li Jinyu and Ren Shuling glanced at each other, and their faces showed delightful expressions. Lu Jishi lowered her eyes slightly as if she was in a trance, so she didn't notice what was happening here. Li Zhenyu saw that everyone's emotions had already been hyped up, so he slowly stepped forward and said in a gentle tone, "Doctors, please listen to me. Although Master Yuehua is wrong, he made a significant contribution to Yangon City during that plague 10 years ago, so please forgive him for his deception. After Jishi returns to the Doctors Association, she will also plead for Master Yuehua, hoping that his fourth-rank doctor title can be exempted without penalizing him." Many doctors nodded after hearing this. After all, Master Yuehua still had his reputation, they also had a good impression of Master Yuehua. But there were also some doctors who were very unwilling to do so. They wanted to ruin Master Yuehua today and let him unable to come back forever. The triangle-eyed doctor who spoke the first sneered again, "If everyone cheats the Doctors Association and deceives patients and fellow doctors without being punished, there will only be more and more conscienceless doctors in the future. Just look at Shiyu, I think we can't let such a scum go. Doctors who deceive the world like this must be punished severely. Dr. Jiang is right. We must sue the Doctors Association and punish Master Yuehua severely." "Bah, you still call him a master. Is he worthy of the title?" Master Yuehua's face was pale. His eyes closed tightly, and his hands hanging beside him were shaking. Suddenly, there was a soft sigh in his ear. Master Yuehua turned his head when he heard the sound, and he saw a beautiful face that was as pure as jade and as bright as a moon. The owner of that face was looking at him with an expression of, "Are you an idiot?" Her eyes were full of contempt. Chapter 965, Turn the Tide, Master Yuehua, she said lightly, "Have you forgotten the fact that you can refine pill now?" "Ah." Master Yuehua was taken aback. She shook her head helplessly. She suddenly took out a few silver needles on her fingertips. The silver needles instantly went into Master Yuehua's acupuncture points. Master Yuehua only felt that a strange warm current surged out from his body. His dantian that couldn't condense spiritual fire seemed to be reborn once again. She quickly retrieved the silver needle and smiled faintly. "Didn't they say you can't condense the spiritual fire? Then, show them." Master Yuehua was startled when he heard the words, then his eyes suddenly lit up. He gritted his teeth and channeled his spiritual power in the dantian. The next moment, a crimson spiritual fire was emitted from his fingertip. As soon as the spiritual fire appeared, the temperature of the entire room rose suddenly, but it didn't feel scorching but warm and comfortable. The doctors looked at the spiritual fire burning in Master Yuehua's hand, and their eyes widened. Although the spiritual fire of Master Yuehua was not entirely from his dantian, it was formed by refining the natural sky fire and then integrating into his body, but there was a difference in such spiritual fire. Not all martial artists could condense such spiritual pill that could refine pills. The spiritual fire condensed in Master Yuehua's hand was clearly of excellent quality, the fire was solid and stable. How could there be signs of dantian collapse? Who said that Master Yuehua can't refine pills? How can such a spiritual fire fail to refine pills? Dr. Jiang, aren't you the one who said Master Yuehua can't refine pills? What's going on now? The triangular-eyed Dr. Jiang stared at the spiritual fire on Master Yuehua's fingertips in disbelief, and shook his head vigorously. "Impossible, this is impossible. I clearly heard the news that Master Yuehua has not been able to pill refining. If we can't pill refining, how can we suddenly condense the spiritual fire?" Suddenly, his gaze turned and fell on Heshi, and he suddenly exclaimed, "It's you. It's you who did it, right? Did you use some tricks to make Yuehua seem to condense spiritual fire?" "In fact, it's just a trick." Heshi's hands around were her chest, and she glanced at Dr. Jiang with a hint of ridicule. She said slowly, "Oh. You said Master Yuehua is a liar, then why don't you have a match in pill refining here with him? Of course, the premise is that Dr. Jiang, your dantian that is eroded by evil aura, can still condense the spiritual fire." "You, how did you know that?" Dr. Jiang let out a sharp shout. It was just that as soon as he said that, his face immediately changed drastically, knowing that he fucked up. He covered his dantian's position and shook his head in shock. No. No. I have not been corroded by evil aura. Don't listen to his nonsense, I didn't. However, the eyes of the doctors looking at him were already full of doubts. He sneered and said, "You want to prove that your dantian is not corroded by evil aura? It's very simple. Just condensed spiritual fire like Master Yuehua did, isn't it enough?" Dr. Zhang's face turned pale, and his body trembled slightly, but he didn't intend to condense spiritual fire at all. Some doctors couldn't help shouting, "Didn't you say that you are not corroded by evil aura? Why don't you condense the spiritual fire?" Chapter 966, Lost? That's right. If you don't condense the spiritual fire, you're the swindling one. We will definitely report to the Doctors Association and let them punish you. Hurry up and condense the spiritual fire. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite. Facing the aggressiveness of the doctors, Dr. Jiang finally collapsed. He almost instinctively rushed toward Li Zhenyu, shouting, "Elderly, you and Miss Ren promised that as long as I say in public that Master Yuehua cannot refine pill, you will ask Fairy Jishi to help me get rid of the evil aura in the dantian. Help me now." Li Zhenyu's face was extremely ugly. He kicked away Dr. Jiang with a gloomy face, then he said coldly, "What are you talking about? When did I promise you?" Li Zhenyu's kick was extremely heavy. After being kicked by him, Dr. Jiang hit the wall heavily, vomiting a mouthful of blood and passed out. Everyone was dumbfounded by this scene, then they looked at Li Zhenyu and Ren Shuling with doubts. Li Zhenyu gritted his teeth to suppress the tyrannical anger and murderous intent in his heart before taking a step forward and looking at He coldly. "Shiyu, are you changing the subject now? Even if it proves that Master Yuehua can now pill refining, so what? This will not change the fact that you have already lost to Jishi. In the beginning, you agreed that as long as Jishi cures the young city lord first, then you lose. You want to renege now?" He smiled faintly. Her voice was clear and moving. "Who said I'm going to renege it?" "Then, it means you have lost." Li Zhenyu showed a sinister smile. "Since you are not as good as others, shouldn't you admit your mistakes for provoking and being rude to Jishi? Since you have lost, shouldn't you tell the people of the Yangon city about it?" He slowly put her hands behind her back and took a step forward. Her eyes were gleaming as she said coldly, "Who told you that I have already lost?" As soon as He said this, the entire basement fell into silence. When the doctors looked at He, they thought that she had already gone crazy. Zhuge Xiaotian was now fully awake. There was no bloodthirsty impulse, and he could eat normally. Wasn't that a successful treatment? Someone couldn't help asking aloud, "Boy, you said you didn't lose. Then tell us, how do you win? Isn't the young city lord already completely recovered?" Even Zhuge Xiaotian said in a deep voice, "I used to drink blood every half an hour every day. Sometimes when my spiritual power didn't circulate properly, I would even lose my mind and hurt the others. But after waking up, I don't want to drink blood anymore. My spiritual power is circulating smoothly as well. On the contrary, I feel very comfortable. I think I have been cured." He raised her eyebrows and smiled faintly. "Then young Master Zhuge, have you tried exposing yourself to the sun?" This, Zhuge Xiaotian was taken aback. Even Lu Jishi, who had lowered his eyes, raised her eyebrows and gave He a surprised look. But soon, she showed a faint expression, looking at He and said, "It seems that Mr. Shi has heard my diagnosis just now, so I also know that young Master Zhuge is afraid of the sun." After a pause, she turned to Zhuge Feng and continued, "It is true that the young city lord has not yet fully recovered. Chapter 967, see the result in 3 days. The blood released by the blood-sucking golden silkworm only accounts for 1/3 of the blood of the young city lord. It takes at least 3 days to completely replace the blood of the disease in the young city lord. And 3 days later, the young city lord's illness will be completely healed. He doesn't have to be afraid of the sun from then on. Zhuge Feng was immediately overjoyed when he heard the words. The fear he initially had because of Heshi's words receded, and he nodded. It only takes 3 days to heal, we can wait of course. Zhuge Xiaotian was also full of excitement. He clenched his fists. Thinking that he would soon be healed and be able to walk in the sun, he could no longer suppress his sadness and expectation. Ren Shuling laughed at Heshi immediately. Bitch, you hear that? Brother Xiaotian will be healed in 3 days. What else can you say? Why don't you just kneel down and apologize to my senior sister? Ha ha ha. Heshi smiled slightly and looked at Lu Zhishi leisurely before saying slowly, oh, then let's wait for the results to come out in 3 days. After speaking, without waiting for others to speak, he called Nan Gongyu and others, turned around and left the basement. Lu Zhishi stood there, staring at the direction Heshi was leaving, frowning. Li Zhenyu walked to her and whispered, Zhishi, don't worry about this kind of person. He is holding a false hope. 3 days later, he will lose completely. I see how he can end up. Lu Zhishi lowered her eyes slightly and sighed faintly. I'm not afraid that he provokes up front, I'm afraid that he will do something sneaky on my back. I really can't guard against that. It's fine that if I'm the only one getting hurt. If I tarnish my father's reputation, I should really be punished. A fierce light flashed in Li Zhenyu's eyes, and he immediately said, Zhishi, rest assured, I will never let that kid succeed. Lu Zhishi sneered slightly. She didn't talk and walked toward Zhuge Xiaotian. As soon as Heshi and others returned to their courtyard, Bai Hu couldn't wait to rush over and ask, Princess, that Lu Zhishi seems to have some skills. Zhuge Xiaotian really looks more normal now than before. Do you think she will cure the patient? In that case, aren't we going to lose miserably? Qing Wan was making a cup of tea and handing it to Heshi. She sneered and said, since you don't believe in the princess so much, why don't you go and take out the money you bet now and bet on Fairy Zhishi? Bai Hu shrank his neck and shook his head quickly, I'm not stupid. You see, the princess is so confident. If I bet on Fairy Zhishi now, wouldn't I lose everything? But princess, that Fairy Zhishi's method really can't cure Zhuge Xiaotian? Even Gu Lufeng couldn't help but curiously ask, Shiyu, are you sure that the assets we have invested in will not be lost? Heshi glanced at Nan Gongyu, who was the only old god in the whole room without any doubts or worries, and she couldn't help but put a slight smile. She took a sip of the tea made by Qing Wan. She then smiled, I suggest that if you have money, you can add a little more bet. But, I want a commission for the crystal stones you earn. This is considered the cost of the valid information I provided. Chapter 968, Secret, Princess, do you mean you are confident that Fairy Zhishi can't cure Zhuge Xiaotian's disease? When Bai Hu heard that, both his were beaming. He jumped up excitedly and said, no way. Since it is a sure win, I have to figure out a way to add a little more bet. It's free money, if I don't get it, am I not a fool? Gu Lufeng took a sip of tea and smiled slightly. Rather than adding more bets, it's better to spread the news that Fairy Zhishi will treat Zhuge Xiaotian in 3 days. That way, wouldn't we earn a huge sum of profit? Bai Hu was stunned when he heard it. He slapped the table and said excitedly, Gu Lufeng, you are so amazing. No treacherous, no business indeed. Ha ha ha, I will let people spread the news. This time we will definitely make a huge profit. Shen Qingchua couldn't help but admired Gu Lufeng. She said with her eyes blinking, Brother Lufeng, why are you so smart? Why can't we think of it? Gu Lu's face turned slightly red, but he couldn't help but look at Heshi. You should ask why is Shiyu so smart? Fairy Zhishi is already powerful enough. If it's another doctor, I'm afraid he would have given up already. Only Shiyu can make her have nothing to fight back on medical skills. Shen Qingchua chuckled and said, Sister Shiyu is of course amazing. Otherwise, I wouldn't be fascinated. Halfway through the conversation, Shen Qingchua suddenly realized what she was talking about. She ran away quickly with a blush. Seeing her running out of the yard, Gu Lufeng hurriedly followed up for fear that something might happen to her. The people in the room went to work on their own matters. Soon, only Heshi and Nan Gongyu were left. After everyone left, Nan Gongyu hugged Heshi into his arms and said with a low smile, "You know what's wrong with Lu Zhishi's treatment plan?" Heshi raised her head and asked instead, "You're so sure that I will win?" Nan Gongyu scratched the tip of her nose and smiled, "Sure, I remember what I said, even if I don't believe in myself, I believe in you." Heshi smiled, holding his broad palms and gently pinching his fingers, but she said indifferently, "In fact, most of Lu Zhishi's treatment plans are correct. But she doesn't know that there is a fatal flaw in her treatment plan. That will cause the final result to collapse." "What's the flaw?" Heshi raised her head, smiled slyly, and whispered as she approached Nan Gongyu's ear, "Secret." "Naughty girl." Nan Gongyu gave a low laugh, turned his head and bit her crystal earlobe like giving a punishment, then hugged her into his arms and kissed her affectionately. On the second day, Zhuge Feng got up early in the morning and went to the basement to check his son's condition. Opening the door of the basement, seeing his son who was having breakfast and his appearance had completely recovered to the previous handsome face, Zhuge Feng couldn't help the tears in his eyes. Zhuge Xiaotian was also in an exciting mood when eating the food in the bowl as if he was eating the most delicious food in the world. For the past 6 months, he could only drink blood and eat raw meat every day. This feeling was really terrifying. Just after Zhuge Xiaotian had breakfast, Lu Zhishi brought Ren Shuling and Li Jianyu over. At the same time, there were several doctors who had been here yesterday. Most of these doctors were really interested in medical skills, they were basically at the 4th or 5th rank. Mr. Chen was even a 6th-rank doctor. Chapter 969, Delay. Desperately seeing Lu Zhishi, both Zhuge and his son bowed to her in gratitude. Zhuge Feng even took out the jade box containing divine soul jade and handed it to Lu Zhishi, thanking her for saving his son. But Lu Zhishi refused. She smiled softly, but her tone was very firm, "City Lord Zhuge, thank you for your kindness, but the medical skill competition is not over yet. If I took the divine soul jade first, Mr. Shi would definitely be dissatisfied." Hearing the words, a doctor suddenly said in anger, "That kid Shiyu was clearing trying to delay desperately. The young city lord looks totally fine now. Fairy Zhishi, you should accept this divine soul jade." But Lu Zhishi shook her head very resolutely, "You have heard what Mr. Shi said yesterday. He does not admit that I cured the young city lord, that is, the competition is not over yet. If I accept first this divine soul jade and Mr. Shi and his men spread this out, everyone will say that I seek fame and deceive the public. Zhishi doesn't want to bear the consequences." As soon as Lu Zhishi said this, these doctors all showed resentment and accused Shiyu of shame. Only Master Yuehua stood aside and said nothing. He glanced coldly at Lu Zhishi, Ren Shuling, and Li Jianyu. He had now guessed that the person who instructed Dr. Jiang to accuse him in public that he could not pill refining must be Li Jianyu. Because only close friends like Zhuge Feng and some elders of the Doctors' Association knew that he couldn't refine pill. Lu Zhishi and Ren Shuling as the daughter and disciple of the presidents of the Doctors' Association wouldn't be strange to get this news. Just thinking that they actually used his weakness to indirectly attack Shiyu, Master Yuehua felt a chill in his back. For Fairy Zhishi, a woman whom everyone praised, he had a feeling of scruple against her. After everyone finished chatting, Dr. Chen gave Zhuge Xiaotian another blood exchange under Lu Zhishi's guidance. When this blood exchange was over, the scars on Zhuge Xiaotian's mouth and face almost disappeared. Those terrifying wounds on his hands and feet had also healed. Zhuge Feng looked at his son who was healing at such a speed, and he wished he could kneel down and kowtow to Lu Zhishi. Lu Zhishi's eyes also showed a bit of pride. This vampire disease almost has no treatment in the entire Miluo continent because no one has ever discovered it. But I have read books about this illness and discussed it with my father because of my curiosity. In the end, my father gave me such a treatment plan. Although I have never tried it, I believe that my father's treatment plan must be the most correct. Now, Zhuge Xiaotian's recovery is equivalent to confirming my father's wisdom and strength. When I won after 2 days, I can the divine soul jade to make up for the deficiency of my soul. After that, I can try to advance to the 7th rank doctor and try to refine the 5th grade medicinal pills. So what if Shiyu is great? So what if Xingde Hall can sell the best quality pills? Those medicinal pills are not made by Shiyu himself. Even the best quality pills sold by Xingde Hall are only in the 4th grade at most, but I can refine the 5th grade medical pills at this age. No one has done this before in the entire Miluo continent. At that time, maybe that person will look at me differently, right? Maybe he will feel that I'm better than that Shiyu, right? Chapter 970, Scold badly. Thinking of this, Lu Zhishi's face suddenly turned red, showing a somewhat ashamed expression. She spoke to Zhuge Feng, City Lord Zhuge, after the blood exchange of the young City Lord today, there isn't much root cause left. After all the blood exchange tomorrow, the young City Lord can try to be exposed to the sun. Zhuge Xiaotian stood up excitedly and said, Fairy Zhishi, I exposed to the sun tomorrow. Really? People who had never lost the sun couldn't understand his pain and torture of being locked in a dark basement. Zhuge Xiaotian's desire for sunshine had reached the point of madness. The next day arrived quickly. All the blood in Zhuge Xiaotian's body was replaced by the last blood-sucking golden silkworm and the Lingxue pill. Lu Zhishi led Zhuge Xiaotian out of the basement slowly, and he finally stood under the sun. The warm sunlight shone on Zhuge Xiaotian's body, stroking his skin little by little. Zhuge Xiaotian looked a bit terrified, but he soon discovered that there was no pain. Unlike before, his skin would have red spots as soon as it was exposed to the sun. He opened his arms to embrace the sunlight. Suddenly, he turned to look at Zhuge Feng and said in a trembling voice, Father. Look. I didn't feel uncomfortable under the sun. Zhuge Xiaotian wiped the tears on his face and nodded, his eyes filled with joy and happiness. This scene in the courtyard of the city lord's mansion quickly spread throughout Yangon City. Suddenly, the people in Yangon City who were full of confidence in Fairy Zhishi crazily supported her. And the odds in Chang'e gambling house that were stabilized by Nangong Yu suddenly jumped to more than 1,300. As for Shiyu, who wanted to use Fairy Zhishi's reputation to increase his fame, was scolded by everyone. Everyone was waiting the announcement that the young city lord had recovered the day after tomorrow, then they would let Shiyu kneel on the city wall to beg everyone for mercy. Master Yuehua, who originally had an excellent reputation in Yangon City, would be implicated by Shiyu. Master Yuehua made medicinal pills to control the plague more than 10 years ago, saving the lives of hundreds of people in Yangon City. At that time, all people of the Yangon City truly regarded him as a hero and savior. However, more than 10 years have passed. Many people who had survived that plague had either left the city or had forgotten about the plague. Some old people who had no cultivation had long been dead. In the past 10 years, Master Yuehua didn't refine any special elixir, and he hadn't been treating people. Slowly, everyone forgot about the savior of Yangon City. Although some people remembered his past achievements, most of them didn't care much. Besides, in the competition between Fairy Zhishi and Shiyu, someone reported that Master Yuehua had favored Shiyu several times because of his own self-interest, which caused Fairy Zhishi to suffer great injustice. In particular, Master Yuehua had long been unable to refine pills and treat patients, but he had been deceiving everyone with the title of the 4th rank doctor. Once such a rumor came out, everyone had a bad impression of Master Yuehua. Chapter 971, Rumors. In the past 2 days, in addition to discussing the medical skills competition between Fairy Zhishi and Shiyu in the tea house and restaurant, many people also cursed and condemned Master Yuehua's shameless deception. I admired Master Yuehua so much, but I didn't expect him to be such a deceitful person. Humph. No wonder Master Yuehua wasn't willing to come to my house to treat. It turns out that he is unable to treat at all. I have told you that Master Yuehua is old. Even if he can still pill refining, he is no more than a 4th-rank doctor in the past 10 years, but Fairy Jishi is extremely beautiful. She was a 6th-rank doctor at the age of 20s. Isn't it easy to judge who is strong and who is weak? I just didn't expect this Master Yuehua to be so shameless. Never mind that he deceives everyone, he even spoke up for the bastard Shiyu. It's no wonder that his true face has been exposed now. This is his own responsibility. Master Yuehua stood at the entrance of the restaurant, and the dim light in his eyes had already turned into despair. He didn't say anything, but he turned around and stumbled away. Along the way, there were people pointing at him. The look of admiration and gratitude in the past had now turned into contempt and doubt. It was like he had fallen into hell in just one night. This Yangon city, where he had lived for decades and which he regarded as more important than his own life, was now so unfamiliar to him that it terrified him, making him want to escape. Master Yuehua returned to the city lord's mansion in despair. As was about to walk to his courtyard, a man's smiling voice came from behind him, Master Yuehua. Yuehua turned her head and immediately saw Li Jianyu's half-smile and eyes full of cold and contemptuous expression. Master Yuehua was stunned for a moment. Before he could reply, Li Jianyu said slowly while waving his folding fan gently, Master Yuehua, have you ever heard that rumors are like a flame blown by the wind? People always believe in the truth that is easy to believe in. So what if Master Yuehua you can prove that you can refine pill in front of the other doctor? Will anyone in Yangon City believe in you? You did all these. Yuehua's body trembled all over. He pointed at Li Jianyu and yelled, Li Jianyu, you despicable villain. It's you who told Dr. Jiang that I can't refine pill, it's also you who spread this news to the citizens of Yangon City. What do you want from me? Li Jianyu smiled, waving the fan casually, but he was looking at Master Yuehua with a cold gaze, so what if I was the one who spread the rumors? Will anyone believe in you now? Even if you show your spiritual fire in front of everyone, they will only think that you are tricking them. No one will ever believe in you anymore in this Yangon city. From now on, you will become a rat that is hated by everyone. What enmity do I have with you? Why do you want to frame me like this? Master Yuehua stared at Li Jianyu with bloodshot eyes. Li Jianyu said coldly, you know that Jishi has promised Zhuge Feng to treat Zhuge Xiaotian's illness, but you still brought in those bitches. They hurt my cousin, and they even humiliated Jishi. This is your biggest sin. You ask why I want to harm you. Chapter 972, Give you a chance. Master Yuehua clenched fists and said, medical skills have endless potential. The only purpose is to treat patients. Shiyu has medical skills and is capable. What's wrong with inviting him to treat Xiaotian? Li Jianyu's eyes were like a sharp ice sword. He sneered, now it's too late for you to say anything. Because of your own stupidity, you have nowhere to stay in Yangon City. But Master Yuehua, I can give you a chance based on the contributions you made for Yangon City. Master Yuehua frowned and looked at him coldly without saying a word. Li Jianyu didn't care as he said slowly, as long as Master Yuehua promises me to approach Shiyu, spy on his treatment methods, and sprinkle this bottle of powder in the medicine she wants to use, I will think of a way to restore your reputation. What do you think? Master Yuehua said with hatred, don't you always believe that Fairy Jishi can cure Zhuge Xiaotian? Since she can cure him, Fairy Jishi will win tomorrow. Shiyu will naturally lose and be driven out of Yangon City. Why do you have to be ruthless against Shiyu? Li Jianyu smiled coldly, shook the fan, and said in a deep voice, I always don't like to take risks. Although Jishi will never lose, no one can guarantee Shiyu will set Jishi up. Hee. I want to guarantee that even if Jishi does not cure the patient, I will never let Shiyu succeed. What's more, when he said this, his voice paused slightly. A sinister smile slowly appeared on his face. Even if Jishi wins tomorrow, I will force Shiyu to take out the medicinal pills he used for treatment and let others people take it. Once the person takes medicinal pills and is poisoned to death, Shiyu will be charged with murdering the young city lord. When that happens, he will never be able to escape. Why are you so despicable and shameless? Master Yuehua was trembling. His gaze looking at Li Zhenyu was not just resentment, but deep disgust. Do you think I will do as you say after knowing your intention? Impossible. Li Zhenyu was not at all angry when he heard the words, but he smiled faintly. No. Master Yuehua, you will agree. Because this is not only related to your reputation, but it also related to whether you can live in this Yangon city and whether, Zhuge Feng, the city lord will lose his position. If you don't agree, I will let Shuling contact his father after Jishi gets the Divine Soul Jade. Zhuge Feng will be reported for covering you. He knew you can't refine Phil, but he didn't report to the Doctors Association. In this way, do you think Zhuge Feng can still become the city lord? Maybe his son's illness will relapse and turn into a vampire again, ha ha ha. Master Yuehua was stunned on the spot, his eyes suddenly turned red, staring at Li Zhenyu. The smile on Li Zhenyu's face made his stomach churn, making him feel sick and desperate. He gritted his teeth and said, Li Zhenyu, aren't you afraid of retribution for doing these despicable things? Li Zhenyu sneered, closed the folding fan in his hand, and said in a deep voice, whatever you say, but Master Yuehua, are your reputation and Zhuge Feng's future more important than Shiyu? I think you know what to choose, right? Chapter 973. On the city wall. As soon as he finished speaking, he threw a porcelain bottle at Master Yuehua. Master Yuehua held the icy surface of the porcelain bottle with his body trembling violently as if he wanted to crush the porcelain bottle, but he didn't do it in the end. Nothing. He had no choice in such a desperate situation. Li Zhenyu laughed smugly, turned around and left quickly. After Li Zhenyu left a whole cup of tea, Master Yuehua stumbled and walked to his yard with the porcelain bottle. When the figures of the two people disappeared completely, a black figure in the grass in the distance came out, thought for a moment, revealed a deep smile, and then quickly disappeared. Another day had passed. Zhuge Xiaotian's symptoms got better and better. After all his blood was exchanged and confirmed that the sun would not harm him anymore, Zhuge Xiaotian did not rush to bask in the sun. Instead, he meditated and channeled his spiritual power throughout his entire body and dantian. This made his scars recover more quickly. Especially the scars on his face were completely recovered. Zhuge Feng was so excited for Zhuge Xiaotian's recovery that he could not sleep at night, wishing to announce to the entire Miluo continent that his son had recovered. Therefore, when Li Zhenyu proposed to announce the result of Fairy Jishi's treatment on the city wall tomorrow in front of all the people in Yangon City, Zhuge Feng agreed without hesitation. Although he felt sorry for Shiyu, the Zhuge family owed Fairy Jishi too much. If this was what Fairy Jishi hoped, he could only sacrifice Shiyu. It was the third day soon, which was the day for the results of the medical skill competition to be decided. Just after 9 a.m., in front of the city lord's mansion, a crowd had gathered there. Some of these people were ordinary people or low-rank martial artists, but some were high-rank martial artists above the meridian stage, and there were even many gold core stage experts. It could be said that the entire Yangon City people were looking forward to the outcome of Fairy Jishi's treatment and were also looking forward to the final result. At 15 minutes, Zhuge Feng opened the door and walked into Zhuge Xiaotian's room with a smile on his face. Xiaotian, are you ready? The city residents have been waiting outside for almost an hour. But as soon as he saw Zhuge Xiaotian's face, Zhuge Feng frowned slightly. Xiaotian, why is your face so pale? Is your illness relapse again? I will ask Fairy Jishi to come and see you again. I'm fine. Zhuge Xiaotian quickly stopped his father. Father, I'm really fine. Please don't trouble Fairy Jishi anymore. Maybe it's because I'm too excited that I can't sleep well and meditate well, so I look a little tired. I seem to have a slight fever as well, but I will take a good rest after today. Zhuge Feng breathed a sigh of relief when he heard this, then he smiled, since you are fine, let's go up to the city wall. Zhuge and his son went up to the city wall. At the same time, Fairy Jishi and Heshi were also led to the city wall. Accompanied by the group of doctors who had been watching Fairy Jishi treating Zhuge Xiaotian these days. The people of Yangon City underneath saw Zhuge Xiaotian appear in front of them, and there was a clamor all of a sudden. Did you see that? Isn't that the young city lord? He hasn't shown up for more than half a year. Chapter 974, Announce the result. I heard that the young city lord is sick and can't expose to the sun. See, isn't he fine now under the sun? That means, the young city lord's disease is really cured by Fairy Jishi. Fairy Jishi actually treated the illness that even the 7th rank doctor can't treat. She is really amazing. The sun shone on Zhuge Xiaotian, making his pale and handsome be visible. Everyone could see that Zhuge Xiaotian was healthy, normal, and intact. This was the best proof that Fairy Jishi had cured him. Ren Shuling heard the comments and admiration from the people below, and she immediately stepped forward and mocked Heshi, bitch, you have seen the appearance of the young city lord now? What else do you have to say? Kneel down to my senior sister and admit your mistake now. Heshi glanced at Zhuge Xiaotian faintly. His face was a little paler than just now, and there was even a faint glow on his skin which made his face even more charming. However, when no one was paying attention to him, Zhuge Xiaotian's eyes were in a daze. His lips became blushing. He even licked his lips and wiped his forehead with his hand. Heshi breathed out slowly, shook her head lightly, and thought in her mind, as expected. Ren Shuling saw her sigh and shook her head, thinking that she finally gave up this time. She couldn't help laughing. Senior sister, did you see? That bitch Shiyu was pretending a few days ago, saying that there is something wrong with your treatment method. It turns out that he just doesn't want to admit defeat. Now he is panicking seeing that there is no opportunity to come back. Li Jianyu took a step forward and said coldly, so what if you panic? You think you don't have to kneel to Jishi because you panic? As Li Jianyu said, he looked at the people of Yangon City below. Everyone in Yangon City, I believe that everyone knows the pressure and torture that Jishi has endured in the past few days. Although she gets it through because of her tenacity and superb medical skills, the culprit is in the front right now. Doesn't he need to be punished? We must punish this scum who humiliated Fairy Jishi. Let him kneel down and kowtow to Fairy Jishi. Kick him out of Yangon City, no. Kick him out of Tiangang Kingdom, so that he will never come back. City Lord Zhuge, quickly announce the result of the competition. Then let this scum kneel to Jishi now. Yes. Yes. City Lord Zhuge, please announce the result of the competition. Our bet in Changle Gambling House is still waiting to be redeemed. The voices that supported Fairy Jishi and cursed Shiyu below came like a tsunami. Zhuge Feng couldn't help but glance at his friend Master Yuehua under this situation. Master Yuehua had a pale face, but his expression was cold. He didn't mean to object. Then he breathed a sigh of relief, slowly stepped forward, raised his hand and waved it down. Please be quiet, everyone. Now, I will announce the result of the competition between Fairy Jishi and Shiyu. When Zhuge Feng said this, even Bai Hu on Heshi's side was panicking. He leaned close to Heshi's ear and whispered, Princess, Zhuge City Lord is about to announce the result. Is this Fairy Jishi really going to win? Then wouldn't the crystal stone we bet be all gone? Chapter 975, It's too late. Heshi sighed softly and said, It's too late. What? It's really too late. Bai Hu's face turned pale. He glanced in the direction of Nangong Yu and said tremblingly, Are we really going to lose all our capital? Ahem. That is, all the crystal stones and magic weapons of the King of Hell Mansion. Heshi glanced at him lightly and said with a slight smile, I mean, there is no need to stop him. Zhuge Feng can't finish the announcement. As soon as He finished speaking, Zhuge Feng continued, 3 days ago, Fairy Jishi provided a treatment plan to diagnose and treat my son Zhuge Xiaoyan's strange disease. After 3 days of treatment, Xiaoyan's disease has now been completely cured. So, I announced that the result of the competition between Fairy Jishi and Shiyu, Jishi, father, ah. Before Zhuge Feng finished his last sentence, Zhuge Xiaotian, who had been standing aside, touching his forehead and licking his lips, suddenly let out a scream, then he pounced at guard next to him with red eyes. The sharp teeth pierced the guard's neck, then the terrifying sound of drinking blood sounded on the deadly silent city wall. Such a terrifying blood-drinking sound continued for several seconds before someone finally reacted. The entire scene was in chaos. The guards rushed to pull Zhuge Xiaotian off from the guard. The guard let out a weeping cry. A large piece of flesh and blood was torn off from behind his neck. The wound was horrible. The guard could only scream for once, then he fainted in horror. Zhuge Xiaotian was still screaming and struggling after being ripped off by the guards. On his hands, face, and neck, dense red spots began to appear. These spots quickly grow and rot under the sun's rays, and the blood was mixed with pustule, giving off a nauseating rancid smell. Zhuge Feng suddenly jumped onto Zhuge Xiaotian, who was restrained by the guards, and shouted in a panic, Xiaotian. Xiaotian. What's wrong? Don't scare father. But Zhuge Xiaotian was struggling constantly. His eyes were blood red, he bared his teeth, revealing the slowly rotted lips and teeth inside. The scene was too terrifying, and the changes were too strange. Suddenly, the people below fell into a strange silence. They looked straight at Zhuge Xiaotian's current appearance with their eyes widened. Hearing the terrifying screams and teeth-rubbing sounds, they all showed horrified expressions. Although they knew that the young city lord was sick, they never thought it would be such a terrifying disease. They never thought that such a horrible scene of patients sucking blood and eating flesh would appear in front of them. Zhuge Feng, who kept yelling Zhuge Xiaotian, suddenly seemed to think of something. He turned his head vigorously and shouted, Fairy Jishi, Fairy Jishi. Come and see what happened to Xiaotian. Didn't you say that he has been cured? What's wrong with him? Quickly come and see. Fairy Jishi was also shocked by what happened before her eyes. She reacted abruptly when she heard Zhuge Feng's words, and hurriedly came to Zhuge Xiaotian. Chapter 976, Didn't you say it's cured? However, at this time, she was really panicking. She had just one thought in her mind. How could it relapse again? How could it happen? My treatment plan can't go wrong. Daddy can never go wrong. It must not be because of the wrong treatment, but Zhuge Xiaotian is poisoned again. That's right, it can never be because my treatment failed. I only need to check at Zhuge Xiaotian's aura, then I will know. As Fairy Jishi walked, she shook her head heavily as if to convince herself and as if to give herself confidence. However, as soon as she walked to Zhuge Xiaotian and was about to check out his aura, Fairy Jishi couldn't help tremble seeing Zhuge Xiaotian's current appearance. Zhuge Xiaotian's appearance was more terrifying than when he was in the basement that day. His face had already been covered in red spots all over, and most of them had begun to ulcerate. Together with the spooky teeth and bloodthirsty eyes, it terrified the surrounding people and made their stomachs rolling. Zhuge Feng was worried about his son's illness, but he saw Lu Jishi being stunned there with a look of fear and disgust. He couldn't help but furiously said, Fairy Jishi, why are you standing there? Give Xiaotian treatment quickly. Lu Jishi woke up suddenly. Her face turned pale, but she quickly regained her senses and released a white smoke. White smoke spiraled into Zhuge Xiaotian's nose. Zhuge Xiaotian, who was screaming and struggling, quickly calmed down and closed his eyes, but his body seemed to be twitching because of some pain. When Lu Jishi saw Zhuge Xiaotian finally calmed down, he was also quietly relieved. Then she looked at Zhuge Feng and said sternly, City Lord Zhuge, it stands to reason that the young city lord's illness should be cured. I don't know if someone else did something later. This requires a detailed examination and diagnosis. But now we should move the young city lord to a place where there is no sunlight. Zhuge Feng frowned with a gloomy face, and his knuckles were making a crackling sound. He was originally ecstatic that his son had recovered, but his son suddenly became worse and more painful than before. This feeling of losing hope was even worse than Xiao Tian was never cured. It made him even more furious. However, he calmed down and ordered the guards on the side, immediately carry the young city lord back to the basement. Several guards came forward, and the Yangon city people were in chaos. What happened to that just now? Isn't he cured now? Did you see the young city lord's look just now? It's so terrifying. If this isn't cured, wouldn't the young city lord become a cannibal monster? Then who is the winner between the medical skill competition of Fairy Jishi and Shiyu? However, just when everyone was talking about the noise, another sudden change happened on the city wall. When the guards rushed over and tried to carry the fainted Zhuge Xiaotian down the city wall, his body convulsed suddenly. He broke away with his bloodthirsty eyes. The guard closest to Zhuge Xiaotian was stunned by his bloodthirsty eyes. Immediately afterward, the guard was held on his neck, then he felt a sudden severe pain. Zhuge Xiaotian had bitten off a piece of meat together with his clothes. Chapter 977, It's Too Late, Ah! The guards screamed, and the situation on the city wall became chaotic again. Lu Jishi had never thought that Zhuge Xiaotian, who was fainted by her knockout scent, would wake up again. She was stunned for a while with a look of panic. Suddenly, Li Jianyu's panicked voice came into her ears, Jishi, be careful. As soon as the words sounded, Lu Jishi felt a stinky smell rushing over his face, then a scary face full of red spots and bloodstains appeared in front. He bit toward her neck. Lu Jishi let out a horrifying scream, then she took out a crossbow without even thinking about it. This hand crossbow looked no different from the crossbows used by mortals, but it was forged with heavenly heartwood that was more than hundreds of thousands of years old. The arrows were even smeared with deadly poison. It was called, Divine Mechanic Crossbow. Zhuge Feng almost recognized this, Divine Mechanic Crossbow, at first sight. Almost everyone in the Miluo continent knew that the Divine Mechanic Crossbow was Lu Shuyang's life-saving weapon when he was young. After he became famous, he left this treasure to his only daughter. The firing speed of the Divine Mechanic Crossbow was very fast. In addition to its highly poisonous arrows, it could easily penetrate the protective shields and flesh of martial artists. Even the martial artists of the nascent soul stage could be seriously injured by the Divine Mechanic Crossbow, let alone Zhuge Xiaotian of the Meridian stage. If he was hit by Divine Mechanic Crossbow, he, who was severely ill initially, would almost certainly die. Fairy Jishi, show mercy! Zhuge Feng yelled in horror. However, it was too late. The sound of the Divine Mechanic Crossbow blasted through the air, and the arrow flew toward Zhuge Xiaotian's forehead. No! Zhuge Feng's eyes were widened as if blood and tears would gush out. His only son, his Xiaotian, was going to die in full view of everyone like this. Suddenly, Zhuge Feng's expression froze in horror. He stared stiffly at the man in black that suddenly appeared in front of Zhuge Xiaotian. For a long time, he felt a pain in his chest before he realized that he was holding his breath. He saw that the man in a black robe had a cold and unparalleled handsome face. The pair of starry eyes seemed to contain the coldest frost in the world, coldly looking at Lu Jishi. His slender fingers caught the arrow in his hand. The Divine Mechanic Crossbow smeared with lethal poison was the common iron in his fingers. He pinched, and the arrow turned into powder. Zhuge Feng took a deep breath and couldn't believe his eyes. Even the martial artists of the nascent soul stage will have danger touching the arrow of the Divine Mechanic Crossbow, but the young handsome man before him can easily catch the heavenly wood arrow and turn it into powder. Who is this man in black? However, Zhuge Feng was only shocked for a moment, and he looked back at his son soon. At this time Zhuge Xiaotian was no longer in a bloodthirsty mode. His body was still struggling, but his aura slowly calmed down. And standing beside him was the beautiful, unparalleled young man miracle healer, Shiyu. Chapter 978, Shameful Means. At this time, purple vines continued to appear on his hand. As the purple vines soared into the sky, the sun was shielded from the purple vines, casting a big shadow on the city wall. It was like a giant purple umbrella, shrouding Zhuge Xiaotian in the shadows. As the sun's rays disappeared, Zhuge Xiaotian's red eyes slowly recovered their clarity, revealing a look of confusion. Lu Zixi also recovered at this time. She looked back at the man in black with a complicated gaze. It took her a long time to recover and say, Zixi used the divine mechanic crossbow just now in a panic. Thanks to the help of Mr. Nangong that Zixi didn't murder the innocent. Zixi is really grateful. It was Nangong Yu who caught the divine mechanic crossbow, and only Nangong Yu could do it. He smiled coldly when he heard Lu Zixi words. He didn't even look at her, but he turned and walked to the side of the young man who was checking Zhuge Xiaotian's pulse. He whispered a few words in his ear. The Shiyu's clear and beautiful eyes slightly bent, her face was full of helpless and disgusted smile. She gently pushed him. Nangong Yu, who was pushed aside, wasn't annoyed at all, but he was looking at Shiyu with tenderness and pampering that could drown people. Lu Zixi clenched her fists, walked up, squatted down and said coldly, Mr. Shi, my treatment has not been completed yet, are you going to go over me and treat the young city lord directly? He glanced at her with a half-smile, the contempt in her eyes was obvious, making Lu Zixi's anger surged into her mind. However, after all, she held it back. She cast spiritual power into Zhuge Xiaotian's body as usual. When her spiritual power circulated Xiaotian's body for one round, her eyes widened in shock. She murmured, how is this possible? He is still fine yesterday, how could he suddenly become like this? Senior sister, what's the matter? Ren Shuling was shocked by these incidents just now. After she recovered, she rushed to Lu Zixi's side immediately with Li Zhenyu. Li Zhenyu gave He a cold look and said in a deep voice, is someone doing tricks behind the scenes? I said earlier that some people will use shameful tricks in the dark if they can't win openly. Li Zhenyu said this very loudly, and the people in Yangon City below heard it. Lu Zixi shook her head slowly and frowned. She raised her voice slightly, I don't know what's going on. When I checked yesterday, the blood of the young city lord was already normal, but his blood has returned normal today. I don't know who did this. Isn't it obvious? Ren Shuling immediately glared at He and said loudly, apart from those who are afraid of losing, who else would do this? Even Lu Zixi said that someone did some petty means, the people below of course believe in it a little more. Many people cast doubtful eyes on He. He was questioned by everyone and did not say much. Instead, she looked at Zhuge Xiaotian, who was sober, and smiled slowly, young city lord, have you eaten after being inspected by Fairy Zixi yesterday? Have you met anyone? Zhuge Xiaotian shook his head without hesitation, I was meditating all the time yesterday, but I felt upset and unable to concentrate. Since yesterday afternoon, I have no appetite, so I have never been eating anything. Chapter 979, Can't Afford to Lose. He looked at Lu Zixi and Li Zhenyu with cold eyes, according to you three said, I did something to the young city lord's illness, but you have also heard that after the young city lord was inspected by Fairy Zixi yesterday, he didn't see anyone or even eat anything. Then can you please tell me, how did I do that? He's words left Li Zhenyu speechless for a while. Ren Shuling said angrily, you're a sinister and vicious person. Who knows if you have used vicious methods that others don't know. What's more, even if you didn't do anything last night, it doesn't mean you didn't do anything before. He couldn't help but chuckle when she heard the words. She said with a mocking face, if I did something before, Fairy Jishi couldn't find out when inspecting. Miss Ren, are you implying that your senior sister's medical skills are just like that? I didn't. Ren Shuling glanced at Lu Jishi with a red face, but she couldn't continue. Lu Jishi said with an unsightly face, Mr. Shi, I just said that the young city lord's illness has relapsed. I don't know what the reason is, and I didn't say that you did it. Why are you so hostile? As she said, she looked at Zhuge Feng and said in a deep voice, City Lord Zhuge, please forgive Jishi for not completely curing the disease of the young city lord. The disease of the young city lord is really strange. Jishi needs to go back to consult with my father. I believe that my father will have a complete treatment plan. Zhuge Feng's face was pale looking at his son who looked severely ill, then he looked at Fairy Jishi speechlessly for a while. However, without waiting for Zhuge Feng to speak, Bai Hu had already taken a step forward. He said with a sneer, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Aren't we doing medical skill competition? Since it is a competition, you should of course participate with your own skill. How can you go back and ask your father for help? Since you wanted to seek help from your father from the beginning, why didn't you say earlier? Isn't this fooling us? Ren Shuling said angrily, what do you mean by this? Am I not making it clear? Bai Hu put his arms around his chest and said with a half-smiled, since Fairy Jishi can't cure, isn't it our young master's turn? After all, the people of Yangon City are still waiting for the result. The residents of Yangon City underneath looked at each other when they heard the words. The scene became awkwardly quiet. Li Jinyu stepped forward, staring at Zhuge Feng with a fierce gaze and saying coldly, City Lord Zhuge, you have to know that if Jishi can't cure your son's illness, then no one in this world except her father can cure it. Do you think it is worth to offend Jishi and the Doctors' Association behind her for just an insignificant boy? Zhuge Feng's face was even uglier. On the one hand, it was the president of the Doctors' Association, on the other, it was the miracle healer who might cure his son's illness. He had seen the method that Shiyu used to wake Zhuge Xiaotian just now. At this moment, he finally affirmed that it was not Fairy Jishi who calmed Xiaotian down in the basement that day, but the young miracle healer. Before Zhuge Feng had spoken, Bai Hu had already laughed and said, so you can't afford to lose? You can't even afford to let us try. It turns out that Fairy Jishi is just fishing for fame and credit. Chapter 980, Copying Treatment Method. Ren Shuling was furious, what are you talking about? You dare to slander my senior sister. Do you think this Shiyu can cure a patient whom my senior sister can't even cure? Stop dreaming. Li Jinyu was so angry that his body was trembling. Shut your damn mouth. If you dare to insult Jishi again, I will let you die horribly. Bai Hu sneered, it's really funny. You can do shameless things, but the others can't judge you? At first, Fairy Jishi used the reason of first come first served to treat the patient first. This is unfair already, but my young master is magnanimous, so he didn't say anything. Now that she can't cure the patient, then it's my young master's turn to treat, am I wrong? Or, what Fairy Jishi said at the beginning for the sake of the patient was a lie. For the sake of her own face, she doesn't even care about the life and death of the patient? Although Li Jinyu and Ren Shuling kept saying that Lu Jishi was humiliated before, He did not say too much. But now Bai Hu didn't hold back and criticized Lu Jishi as a worthless person. Let alone Li Jinyu cow don't bear it, even Lu Jishi's pretty face turned pale in anger. She stepped forward and said coldly, when did I say that Mr. Shi is not allowed to cure the young city lord? Bai Hu laughed 3 times when he heard the words. He did not give her a chance to continue speaking, well, since Fairy Jishi said so, it means that Fairy Jishi admits that she can't cure the young city lord. Now it's my young master's turn to show his medical skills. Lu Jishi was out of words. Her face flushed suddenly, and she felt embarrassed and humiliated. Li Jinyu, as compared to being humiliated himself, felt even more pain and resentful when he saw that Lu Jishi was humiliated. He originally wanted to say, but he suddenly looked up and met Master Yuehua's cold gaze. Then, Master Yuehua nodded unwillingly. Li Zhenyu was overjoyed. He slowly revealed a sneer, "Jishi, since they insist on treating the young city lord, then let them try. However, if something goes wrong and the young city lord suffers irreparable damage, then it has nothing to do with us." He looked at Zhuge Feng and said, "I also hope that City Lord Zhuge will not regret his decision later on." Zhuge Feng was taken aback for a moment. He had a hint of an unknown premonition in his heart. However, when he saw Zhuge Xiaotian's miserable appearance now, he gritted his teeth, bowed to Heshi, and said with a sob, "Miracle healer Shi, if you really have a way, please save my son." Heshi nodded, then she smiled faintly, "Now I can start the treatment. City Lord Zhuge, please bring me enough blood-sucking golden silkworms." "What? Blood-sucking golden silkworm?" The onlookers on the city wall couldn't help but exclaim, "Isn't this the treatment method Fairy Jishi has used? Are you going to copy Fairy Jishi's method?" Another person also said, "What's a joke? Everyone just saw that this method can't cure the young city lord's disease at all." Ren Shuling even laughed and said, "Shiyu, I thought you are so capable. In the end, you are just copying my senior sister's treatment method." Chapter 981, What's the Flaw? Heshi ignored them, but squatted to Zhuge Xiaotian's side, took a bit of his blood with a knife, and then used her spiritual power to feel it. She knew his situation immediately. Zhuge Feng hesitated, "Miracle healer Shi, what method are you going to use to treat Xiaotian's disease? Blood-sucking golden silkworm can't cure him at all. You don't need to be suspicious when you decide to use someone." Heshi turned around and looked at Zhuge Feng coldly, and she said in a deep voice, "City Lord Zhuge doesn't even understand this principle. When Fairy Jishi was doing the treatment, would you question him like that?" Zhuge Feng shook his whole body, and he subconsciously bowed his head and apologized. After that, he did not dare to delay and quickly asked his subordinates to prepare blood-sucking golden silkworms as soon as possible. The blood-sucking golden silkworms were quickly fetched, and the treatment process was as expected. It was almost exactly the same as Lu Jishi's. The only difference was probably the medicinal pills that nourished blood. Although Lu Jishi's Lingxue pill was precious, the blood it could replenish was only 1/3 at most. Therefore, during Lu Jishi's treatment, she had to go through the process of blood-sucking and releasing blood 3 times. It couldn't be finished on the same day, otherwise the patient would not be able to bear it and would die of shock due to excessive blood loss. The medicinal pills that Heshi gave Zhuge Xiaotian were the best quality 4th-grade medicinal pills. Their main function was to nourish blood, but Heshi had just refined them, so she hadn't named them yet. Zhuge Xiaotian's blood almost recovered instantly after taking these medicinal pills. After an hour, the blood on his whole body had been completely replaced. The dense red spots and festers on his face had already healed a lot by now, and Zhuge Xiaotian's eyes were also clear. However, no one would approve of Heshi's behavior. Even on the city wall, many doctors looked at Heshi as if they were looking at a scum stealing other people's things. Li Zhenyu and Ren Shuling were even more mocking, sometimes amplifying their voices to explain the ins and outs of the matter to the people of Yangon City below. When Lu Jishi saw Heshi take back the blood-sucking golden silkworm one by one, all Heshi's actions were exactly the same as her. She finally couldn't help but take a step forward and say gently, "Mr. Shi, although I don't mind you stealing from me, we have just witnessed that the effect of this treatment method can only last for 2 days. It can't completely cure the disease. You will only disappoint City Lord Zhuge and young City Lord again. Why would you want to do that?" Heshi threw the blood-sucking golden silkworm to the tray in Bai Hu's hand, then she stood up, slowly looked at the doctors present, and finally turned her gaze on Lu Jishi. "Fairy Jishi, you keep saying that you know that this is a vampire disease. Then do you know what caused the vampire disease?" Lu Jishi was taken aback. She blurted out, "What? The so-called vampire disease is indeed a blood disease. But does Fairy Jishi think that the cause of the disease can be completely cured by exchanging blood? Lu Jishi frowned and said in a low voice, since the blood is poisoned, what's wrong with changing his blood? And, Mr. Shi, aren't you doing this too? I followed Fairy Jishi's method to treat the disease, but there is a fatal flaw in your treatment plan. Some of the doctors listening to the side could not help but say loudly, what is the flaw? That you're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.